Well, there was a devoutly religious man who had reached the age of 105, suddenly stopped coming to church. And alarmed by the fellow's absence after so many years of faithful attendance, the priest went to see him and found him in excellent health. So the priest asked, "Why, after all these years, don't we see you at Sunday service anymore?" And the older gentleman lowered his voice and said, "I tell you what," he whispered. "When I got to be 90, I expected God to take me any day. But then I got to be 95, then 100, then 105. So I figured God's real busy and must have forgotten about me, and I don't want to remind him." Oh. Is that why? Okay, where are you? You just don't want to remind. Okay. Oh. Well, this month has been a month of reflecting on our co-founders, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, because both of them have birthdays in August. Myrtle Fillmore's birthday is August 6th, and Charles Fillmore, and I have to say, and me, have the same birthday on August 22nd. So I'm kind of excited about that this week. So I wanted to talk to you. I was very moved to talk about Charles on Myrtle's birthday, and now I'm going to talk about Myrtle on Charles's birthday because, we've heard about Myrtle, and I really feel that Myrtle is truly the founder of Unity because of her healing experience, which I want to share with you today, and I want to share with you a little bit more about her story, and I want to share her words with you. If you've ever been out to Unity Village at 11 o'clock, Monday through Thursday, you will hear on the hour at 11 a.m. either Charles's voice saying the Lord's Prayer or Myrtle's voice saying the prayer of faith. It's so sweet. It's like, oh. And when I was teaching out there, we would just open up the doors because you could hear it out in the hallway, and we would just take a moment. So Myrtle was known really for her sweetness. She was very sweet, very poised, and very powerful. So I wanted to share a little bit more with you about her story because, again, it's foundational for why we're here this morning. So Myrtle was born Mary Caroline Page on August 6th, 1845 in Ohio. She was the seventh child of 8. And she picked the name Myrtle because she said it was her true name and asked people to call her that. Myrtle was diagnosed with tuberculosis at a fairly young age, although at that time it seems that a number of diseases were called tuberculosis. Her father's family had similar illnesses, so it was impressed upon her that her condition was inherited. She was able to finish high school, and at the age of 21, she completed a one-year program at Oberlin College called a literary program for ladies, because women were not eligible for a 4-year program. It was enough to give her a teaching license. So in 1867, she moved to Clinton, Missouri to take a teaching position, and she served there for 13 years, with 1 year spent in Denison, Texas, where she had gone to try and recover her health. It was in Texas that Myrtle Page met her future husband, Charles Fillmore. Myrtle was 9 years his senior, little cougar there, and was 35 when they married in 1881. You go, Myrtle. They moved around a bit, but settled in Kansas City in 1885 with 2 young sons. They had 1 more son. Life was actually not going that well. Myrtle continued to have very poor health, and they were experiencing significant financial difficulties. So in Myrtle's words, "I had all the ills in mind and body that I could bear. Medicine and doctors ceased to give me relief, and I was in despair. Along with tuberculosis, trouble in my lungs, I had disorders through the abdominal walls." So in the spring of 1886, a Christian Science practitioner from Chicago named E.B. Weeks was presenting a series of lectures in Kansas City. And Myrtle later wrote, "It was at the solicitation of friends already interested that my husband and I attended the first class taught. I must have been fully ready for the initial lessons, for it filled and satisfied an empty, hungry longing of my soul and heart. There is nothing in human language able to express the vastness of my possibilities as they unrolled before me." So it was at this lecture that she heard the infamous statement, "I am a child of God and I do not inherit sickness." That was very profound for her. And so her healing journey began. Myrtle wrote this to a friend in a letter. "It flashed upon me that I might talk to the life in every part of my body. I began to teach my body and got marvelous results. I told the life in my liver that it was not torpid or inert, but full of vigor and energy. I told the life in my stomach that it was not weak or inefficient, but energetic, strong, and intelligent. I told the life in my abdomen that it was no longer infested with ignorant ideas of disease, but there by myself, by doctors, but that it was all a thrill with the sweet, pure wholeness energy of God. I told my limbs that they were active and strong. I told my eyes that they did not see of themselves, but that they expressed the sight of spirit, and that they were drawing on an unlimited source. I told them that they were young eyes, clear, bright eyes, because the light of God shone right through them. I told my heart that the pure love of Jesus Christ flowed in and out through its beatings, and that all the world felt its joyous pulsation. I went to all the life centers in my body and spoke words of truth to them, words of strength and power. I asked their forgiveness for the foolish, ignorant course that I had pursued in the past, when I condemned them and called them weak, inefficient, and diseased. I did not become discouraged at their being slow to wake up, but kept right on, both silently and aloud, declaring the words of truth until the organs responded." She loved that. So Myrtle lived into one of her favorite verses in Romans. "Be transformed by the renewing of your mind." So what happened was that she went through these affirmations and this forgiveness ritual for 2 years, 2 hours a day. And she healed her body of tuberculosis. And so word got out, and people started writing her and Charles, saying, "Please, would you hold us in prayer?" And so in 1890, Myrtle and her husband Charles began to hold formal prayer meetings at their home, and they would put a candle in the window. And that became what we know as silent unity. And the silent unity is called the light that shines for you. If you go out to Silent Unity, or if you go out to Unity Village, you'll see the cupola on top of Silent Unity, and that represents the candle that they put in the window each night. And so Charles and Myrtle would meet with Truth students, and they would hold the prayer requests that came to them. And in 1907, Charles Fillmore added telephone technology to the prayer work of Silent Unity. Charles Fillmore was always on the leading edge of his time. And so Silent Unity now continues over 125 years, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, holding the prayer request of people that call. And World Day of Prayer is coming up on September 14th, and I just want to be a reminder of there's some prayer requests in the back for you to fill out your prayer request that we will hold and send to Silent Unity, where they will be lifted by the energy of World Day of Prayer. So, someone wrote Myrtle and asked for help to relieve their suffering, and this person asked to be sent healing vibrations. And one of the first points Myrtle made to this person was that there was no promise of results unless the person who was requesting them was supported by faith. And she said, after all, it is not the physical and mental relief that means the most to the persons receiving treatment, and we are not so concerned with the results as we are with the growth in consciousness that will make the results abiding. See, what she wanted to impress upon people is that consciousness is everything in our healing process. Life is consciousness. And what we mean by that is, as a result of our consciousness, the beliefs, the views, the attitudes, the feelings that we hold, that is how we create our experience of life. See, we do not see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. We see the world through the lens of our consciousness, and Myrtle knew that. And so she wanted to impress upon everyone that wrote to her that healing is a threefold process. And what it involves is the mind, the body, and the spirit. And let's start with the spirit. The spiritual healing that all of us are on, I believe, is to truly embrace the infinite wholeness that we are. What that means is that we embrace the truth of our divinity. And I know for me, that is a life journey, because that's not what I grew up believing about myself. I grew up believing that I was born into original sin. Whoa. And so that was very ingrained. And so that is the foundation, though, of healing that Myrtle tried to impress and that she had to learn, is that we get to embrace, at least make way for embracing the truth of our wholeness, and to have faith in that wholeness. And then she talked about the mind, about how we have to change our mind about our past. And one of the key distinctions that she taught to so many people that wrote to her about healing was forgiveness. Was forgiveness. Because if you notice, what she talked about was, I got to forgive. I asked forgiveness from my cells, from my tissues, for all the ways that I sent them messages that were not the truth about what they are. And Myrtle knew that sometimes that which we have trouble forgiving gets buried in our thoughts. And these are her words. She said, so long as we remember experiences that were unhappy, as we once saw them and still see them, and speak of them, we will be unable to demonstrate joy, prosperity, and health in our lives. These seemingly unkind things have made negative impressions upon our soul. Whatever has been impressed upon our souls will work out in our bodies and affairs. It's very powerful. We have the power to change our soul's impressions, our subconscious, through the indwelling Christ mind, and so change our bodies and their functioning, and also the conditions around us. Yeah. That can be one of the difficult pieces, to forgive our past, to forgive the ways that we have thought about ourselves and thought about life. And then she talks about body, our body temple, because she also said that sometimes those of us on the spiritual journey might not remember this threefold process, and we might focus more on the spiritual and forget the body. Or we might focus more on our forgiveness work and forget that we're inherently whole. So she wanted us to remember that the body is so important, that it is a temple. And so she asked us, how are you treating your physical body? So that's just a question, because I know in my own life, that's sometimes my last priority. You know, I might be thinking I want to change my consciousness, I want to work on my forgiveness, but wow, I forget to go take that walk. I forget to eat and get enough rest. Eat healthy things. So she reminded us. She said the physical claims that had been considered such a serious nature faded away once she embraced this threefold process. And I found that my body temple had been literally transformed through the renewing of my mind. So folks, let's just take this. This is absolutely about a physical healing because Myrtle demonstrated that we can enhance our health and our well-being. But right now, let's see if we can translate this threefold healing process into what's happening in our world. The events in Charlottesville, the events that are happening that can seem so hurtful. And so let's translate this into what's happening in our world. Because remember, it's how we see the world. And she emphasized that the consciousness that we're holding makes an impact on our physical world. So I just invite us to do a little reflection in the coming week about, first of all, the spiritual. So what are we holding about our world? What are we holding about the people that have been so hurtful? Because the truth is, we're all spiritual beings. And what we know is that the people that inflict pain and hurt in our lives obviously do not know that. And so what is ours to do as people that are on the spiritual path, embracing truth teachings? What is ours to hold and know in the midst of what's happening in our world on a spiritual level? Just ask yourself, what is ours to hold and know? And a mind, what is ours to forgive? What is ours to change our mind about in our own lives? Because I know I've said this to you before, but Facebook, wow, is it an opportunity, in the news, to get clear of what is valuable to me and what do I need to forgive? What do I need to send love to? What do I need to change my mind about? And also, when we look at the body, it's also the habits that we're in. What are our habits? Because the body represents the outer world. What habits might we want to change? I'm doing less Facebooking. Yeah. Again, I think I've shared that I get my news from the comedians. Yeah, but seriously, what are the habits that we get to shift that will support us in creating well-being in our own lives and in the world? So this week, I just invite us to be in reflection about, where are we spiritually? Where are we in embracing the truth of our divinity and the divinity of others? Where are we in our forgiveness work and how we're holding and what we're thinking? And our bodies, yes, our physical bodies, are we taking care of ourselves in the midst of all this? And what habits healthy habits can we take on that will support us and walk in our spiritual journey? And just let Myrtle, sweet Myrtle, be that inspiration for us. Because truly, unity is here because of the power of healing. The power of claiming our divine nature. That is the foundation of unity. So let's live into that foundation and claim it like we never have before in the midst of our world right now. So let's just take this into our week and let's affirm together. I am wholeness expressing, and so it is.